Georgia Tech coming off one of the best seasons in school history, certainly in recent times. 11 wins and the Orange Bowl win to finish in the top 10. We bring in Joey Weaver from the Rumble seat to talk about 2015 spring practice with stability on one side of the football and a lot of uncertainty on the other side of the football, Joey. So let's dive in on the offense. Quarterback Justin Thomas is back, but little else. So can you kind of set us up with spring practice having started last week?
Yeah, so major storyline to follow on the offensive side of the ball this year is the replacement of starters at all of the skill positions. So that's both wide receivers, both A-backs, and a B-back to replace. At B-back in particular, they have to replace all of their returning carries. They have nobody on the roster that has recorded a carry at the FBS level, so they're looking to replace him. They've got a main candidate there would be C.J. Leggett. He's a redshirt freshman. Almost got some playing time last year. They almost wanted to burn his until St. John days really came on after Zach Lasky's injury. He'll be backed up currently by Quade Weimerskirch. He was a true freshman, is currently in spring practice, and then they'll bring in two more true freshmen this fall that should be competing for that spot. The other spot to watch is going to be the wide receiver position. You lost DeAndre Smelter and Darren Waller, both likely draft candidates. They'll be replaced most likely by Michael Summers and either Ricky June or Antonio Messick, although there are also some true freshmen coming in there that could very well have something to say about that. So a lot of areas in flux on the offensive side of the ball as we go through spring practice for sure.
Joey, you know better than just about anyone that the byproduct of having this type of style of offense and recruiting these type of quarterbacks is typically they're completing about 50% of their passes, something in that range, low 50% tile, compared to other quarterbacks around the country in the 60, 65, close to 70% range at times. So Justin Thomas, despite that figure being what you expected, had a very impressive touchdown to interception ratio. I believe threw more touchdowns than anybody under Paul Johnson at Georgia Tech. Your thoughts about him having to make the transition from being the guy that's surrounded by all this talent and experience to the guy that's got to shoulder a little bit more of the load?
Yeah, I think he did a great job in 2014. Obviously, like you said, had some really great passing numbers and probably the best passing we've seen under Paul Johnson in the quarterback position or at Georgia Tech in a long time for that matter. But again, yeah, so he's losing both of his big receivers that were big targets for him. Smelter in particular was a guy who got him a lot of tough yards, made a lot of big plays, got him out of a lot of tough spots. It's going to be interesting to see how he adjusts now to having to throw to different receivers. May end up involving the A-backs a little more as well as new wide receivers. And so that's one thing I'm definitely watching and interested to see is how he adjusts to having a whole bunch of seniors around him to having to maybe be more of the leader and put them in positions to be successful.
Joey Weaver from the Rumble seat joining us talking Yellow Jackets with the spring game coming up on April 17th. Let's look at the defense, Joey. The last time we saw them on the field in Miami, it was extremely impressive. Forget about the yardage totals because most of it was in garbage time. What they did to Mississippi State, considering that Mississippi State is producing an NFL running back and Josh Robinson, who's left early, Heisman candidate at quarterback, and all that size and speed at wide receiver. Wow, it was impressive to see what the Yellow Jackets did there. And the good thing, as you let me know before we came on, 9 starters back. That's really good news.
Absolutely, a huge deal to return all that talent. Now, it's going to be interesting going into 2016. In the secondary, they have 5 starters slated to start, if we're talking about the 4-2-5. Very, very experienced, very deep unit there, so it should be a good unit to run through this very tough 2015 schedule. Biggest thing up front I think is going to be interesting is that it's traditionally been a bit of a weak point for Georgia Tech's defense is the defensive line. They return 3 starters up front, and the 4th spot could be filled by a bit of a wild card. Someone that a lot of fans haven't really heard of for a year or so was Jabari Hunt-Days. Started as a middle linebacker at Georgia Tech. He's the brother of St. John Days, recently graduated B-back. He was academically ineligible last year, but since that time, he's put on about 50 pounds, and he's gone from about 240, 245 to probably in the the lower to mid 290s in weight, and he'll be playing defensive tackle. And one of the things that was mentioned last year was Shaq Mason is a top level offensive lineman for Georgia Tech, looking to be drafted. He said that Jabari Hunt Days was the best defensive lineman he played against all year, and that's not only in practice but in games as well. And so if he's able to make it onto the field, Hunt Days could end up being a major X factor that turns that defensive line into a strength as he plays alongside a really talented senior Adam Gotsis, as well as the returning freshman All-American Keshun Freeman.
Well, despite all the losses on offense, with that defense coming back, and Paul Johnson always seems to have a step ahead in terms of game planning on just about anyone, even those teams that see him every year in the division. So it should be another contending team, I would think, with all that defense coming back and your starting quarterback. Joey Weaver joining us from the Rumble seat, April 17th coming up in just a few weeks, Joey, so hopefully we can have you on after the spring game to get your thoughts on the wrap-up of the spring session.
Absolutely, yeah. I'll be looking forward to it. From the Rumble seat, should have people in attendance at the game. They'll be able to give a great recap on the site, and we'll be able to talk a little bit more about what we've seen through the spring as some of these guys get more adjusted to some of these new starter spots.